And for more on the wider discussion of race relations in the United States, I'm joined now from Philadelphia by Paul Taylor, a professor of African American Studies at Penn State University. Paul Taylor, what single change would you like to see in America in the wake of the killings of these black worshippers?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about this. It's hard to focus on a single change. There are multiple changes we can make in different domains, in the policy domain, in education, and in multiple spaces. If I had to focus on one thing, I would think it's very important that we try very hard to get people to take seriously the kinds of concerns that people in the Black Lives Matter movement have been raising, the kinds of concerns that people who teach about race and racism in the higher ed sector have been trying to raise for many years, kinds of concerns that often get poo-pooed in situations like this, as we're invited to rush to a certain kind of judgment, to sort of morally quarantine the perpetrator, think of him or her as broken, and then proceed as if nothing systemic or deep has happened. So the single biggest change, it's a change we'd have to bring about in multiple domains in multiple ways, is just to take seriously the real meaning of this instead of racing to a certain kind of closure.
Dylann Roof said that he wanted to start a race war, allegedly. How widespread do you think views like that really are in this day and age?
Well, they're much more widespread than people like to think, right? One of the unfortunate consequences or outcomes we saw in the wake of President Obama's election and inauguration was a sort of surge in public expressions of racist sentiment, right? So one of the most famous instances was of people shouting, "Kill him," at a rally for President Obama's opponents, right? So there are moments that lay bare some of the evils that infect the heart of American society in certain ways. And this is one of those moments. And so we get a glimpse of this sort of sentiment. We're encouraged to think it's isolated in certain ways, but it goes much deeper than we think. There are people who study these things who have the figures. Southern Poverty Law Center is one of these places, but just sort of anecdotally, we know that at moments like this, what we see is the tip of an iceberg.
And yet, as we saw in that report, in response to that hatred, the Singletons there are forgiving the man who killed their mother. That's a very powerful example, isn't it? I mean, does that work as a healing tool?
It's extraordinarily powerful, it's extraordinarily important, and it's extraordinarily important that we get it right when we think about this. Forgiveness is a personal and ethical virtue, but it can be a political problem. It is important for the victims of crimes like this to cultivate in themselves a capacity for forgiveness so that they can go on with their lives. But when forgiveness is offered to us as a substitute for justice, when forgiveness is offered to us as a way of short-circuiting the conversation about how and whether we protect our citizens, that's a real problem. So we cannot require that people cultivate the capacity for forgiveness as the central or the only response to this. But it is crucial that individuals cultivate this capacity on their own. As a society, however, we have to do more. It cannot be just forgiveness, it must also be justice.
And just briefly, is it time for gun control, do you think, in the wake of this?
It's long past time. This is the easy part. One of the troubling things about events like this is that, as I say, it lays bare certain kinds of things. It also lays bare the corruption that eats at the heart of American politics. We can't get simple things right. Gun control is, in its way, a simple thing. In some ways it's not, in other ways it is. There's a great deal of support in the American populace for gun control. This should be easy, but it's not.
Paul Taylor, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.